Hello, my name is Vicki Wusche, and this is a Wealthy Life podcast, a podcast designed to tickle your mindset, to get you thinking about different things, to raise your level of financial intelligence, and to get you thinking about whether property investment or some other form of investment is the right way for you to leverage the resources that you have so that you can create more without having to do more. And that's really what the point of this particular episode is. So, starting with when we were away on holiday, and I know that you've been hearing about that over the last couple of episodes, but I was really struck by how I try to do, and I'm going to use the word try, I try to do too much. I'm working too hard to be a better parent. I don't have to be a child to my parents anymore, but to be a sibling, to be an employer. I'm not really an employee anymore, but in all of these roles that we have, whether you're a parent, a child, a sibling, an employer, or an employee, are you overdoing it? And it struck me particularly when we were on holiday, in that I planned so much. Just for example, in one day, we would be exhausted by bedtime at 8 o'clock and then back up again, particularly at one point when we were on the game drives, we were back up at 6:30 in the morning and then having a 2 or 3 hour drive and then maybe going somewhere else and then another drive and so on and so forth. And this desire to cram so much into our lives. And it's ironic because I was going to talk about this today anyway. And I've just come from working with a group of fantastic women down in Croydon that are looking to start their own businesses. And one of the women came to me and she said that one of the things I talked about is income generating days. And I'm not sure whether I've done this in a podcast for you before. So excuse me, I know I very definitely talked about this, but I think about my days as either income generating. So they are days when I am working directly with a client and the hours that I spend working for that client are invoiceable, as in that client has paid specifically for my time. I then have other time that I spend, which is very much about focused on speculation, having a free call with you, wondering whether we are the right fit and you will become a client, or potentially things like this, doing the podcast, writing a blog, maybe writing a book. They could be pieces of messages that I go out, maybe like the event today, driving over to Croydon for a couple of hours to speak to women who are not definitely there because they're going to pay me for my time, but in speaking to them, who knows whether one of them might become a client or who they might refer me on to. So it's very much about speculation. I then have another slot of my time that I think about business development. So this might be where I get mentoring for myself. It could be where I'm thinking about the business strategy, rethinking about the business goals for the next quarter or for the next year, that type of stuff, where you're upper level. You're not in doing mode, you're in thinking and planning and strategizing mode. And the last section of my time is really everything else that's sort of wrapped up into admin. So that could be sending out invoices, it could be checking that payments have been made, it could be dealing with post, it could be like after today, having been to an event, there are people who want to be in touch, so sending out emails, that type of stuff. And so those four categories determine my week: income speculation, income generation, business development, and admin. And business development and admin are sort of the opposites of one another, in that business development is very much about thinking how I can make more money from the business. And admin is often about how I can save money in the business. And then the two that are paired together. If I don't do income speculating, marketing, you could say, or sales even, then I won't get to do the delivery aspect of the businesses, which is where the money is spent. And I said to the women, I mean, I like my days to be linear. I like to spend a whole day doing one thing. And of course, today is a Wednesday when I'm recording, and I'm usually thinking about income generation today. But obviously, I'm doing the podcast recording, which is very much about income speculation. So I'm going to lend myself some time backwards and forwards. I'm not rigid. I don't now make the appointments in my diary. When I first started doing this, I very much made appointments in my diary. So today I'm doing delivery, tomorrow I'm doing business development, then I'm doing income speculation. And if something interrupted the flow of one of those days, I would try and make it a quarter day or a half day and swap that time out. The point is that balance, that I want to spend 40% of my time on income generation, and I need to therefore spend 20% of my time on business development, thinking of the strategy, and 20% of my time on the sales and marketing to get those days filled. And one of the ladies came up and spoke to me and said it made a lot of sense to her what I was talking about, which is fantastic news. And she found that the formula that I gave them and thinking of the days in this way started to resonate with her. And what she was saying was that she was already doing 2 days a week income generation, but she felt that she wasn't doing enough. See where the link is here? You can either be doing too much, trying too hard, or the other way around, thinking that you're not doing enough. And so what she was thinking was that she needed to work harder. So although she was making 2 full days a week of sales, and those sales were generating the income that was her income target, she felt like she needed to take on a bigger section of business, do more work, and actually the commitment, the next stage up from doing 2 days was actually to go to 7 days. That was the opportunity that she'd been offered, to work 7 days a week from 10 in the morning till 9 at night. Now, no human can manage that level of work. And so this was going to require her getting staff in, but she didn't have any staff. But she was being pressured in a way to take on this opportunity, you could say, when she wasn't ready to make that jump, but she felt like she wasn't doing enough. And yet she was actually doing plenty. And maybe there was a smaller step that she could take that she would feel more comfortable with. Because the bottom line is, she hadn't seized this opportunity because she didn't feel comfortable. She didn't feel comfortable because she didn't know that the demand was there. She didn't know that she could produce the product in time. And she didn't have the staff to do the delivery. And as a young mum, this was not something that she'd had in her plan. And so this, are you trying too hard? Are you doing too much? Are you actually doing okay? And you just need to take the pressure off of yourself. I don't know whether this is typically a female thing, because obviously I've just been speaking to women all morning. I would imagine that you guys that are listening, you'll have a lot of this pressure on you as well. So I don't think that it's very specifically female. I think probably the way that we take it on board is different. You know, the way a man might take on board, if you like, the pressure to do more, compared with how a woman might take on board the pressure to do more. Not that one is better or one is worse, but I think you might attach different emotions to it. One might be feeling that you're not doing enough. One might be feeling that you're guilty of not providing for your family. There could be all sorts of emotions attached to this. And I think the point I want you to get to here is, well, why are you trying so hard? I was filling in all my days by visiting all those locations. And in some senses, I can actually unpack that and go, well, that's okay, because I felt like I'd only got 2 weeks in Cape Town. And I knew that there were all these things that I wanted to achieve. I had all of these plans. And so I really needed to crack on and book them in and get them done. But much like life, what I'd managed to do was cram all of my activities in, say, the first 10 days, and then left myself with 15 days at the end where I didn't have a lot to do. And we were lazing around in the vineyards thinking, I wish we'd spent a bit more time somewhere else, and I wish we'd spent a bit more time doing something else, which is that regret, isn't it? And if you think of that as an analogy for life, you're cramming everything in before you're 65. We all know that we're going to live a lot longer than our grandparents and our parents. And then there's all this period after you're 65 where you're cuffing around and you've got nothing to do, because we're pressured to be successful by a certain age. We're pressured to go on holiday and do everything we possibly can. We're pressured to take our businesses to the next level. And so again, why are you trying so hard? Think, do you truly love what you do? If you do, the answer is great. And if you feel energized and living your best life, great. Will taking the next step forward affect how you feel about what you're doing, affect your energy levels, affect how you feel about your life? Will it still be your best life if you work more hours? If you think about that woman I spoke to this morning, I can imagine that if she went from 2 days a week, bearing in mind that she's got a fairly newborn child, she's got, much like I described in my business, the admin to control, the sales and the marketing to control. She's got the business development to think about. She's got 2 days in which she needs to do the delivery. And she'd also quite like to have the weekends and the evenings off to actually be with her family. The pressure to then go up to the next level that she's been offered. So she's had the offer to grow her business, which is wonderful. It's reassuring to know that others have faith in your business and to offer that. She's being encouraged by people she knows. It's nice to know that you have the support. But is it right for you? Is it right for her to then suddenly be in a position where she's either got to work 7 days a week herself, 10 till 9, which is an impossibility. She needs to make a commitment not only to take on bigger premises, but now to take on staff when we don't know exactly what the demand for her product is. We haven't sat down and done the maths that says, okay, you're making a profit working 2 days a week and you're living a good life for that. You're enjoying it, you're focused, you're energized, you've got the right balance. If you then have all those outgoings on bigger premises, more, and then you've got to take on staff, more, can you actually sell more to cover all of those costs? And it's about what is the pressure that you either feel from social media, from family, from friends, potentially even from your business mentors or advisors. What is that emotion that is being triggered in you? And is that helpful? You know, if what you're feeling is, yeah, actually, I'm ready to take on more, everything's going really well, I know I have the systems in place, I know I have the team in place, from the professionals that you need in order to do contracts and invoicing and accounts and all of that sort of stuff. But you've also got the team in terms of support. You can get the delivery, you can make the deliveries, you can staff the sales and the deliveries, whatever it is. If you have all of that and you feel energized by the thought of growing, that's great. But are you trying too hard because others are saying to you, you need to do more? And I think most people I speak to realize they've been fooling themselves. They're all do for others. They're employees that are doing more for their employers. They could be employers doing more for their employees or their customers or for the people that are their delivery partners. You could be a sibling doing more for your family. You could be a parent actually doing all the time for your children, for your parents, for your siblings, for your family, your friends, your business, your employer, and you're just exhausted at the end of it. Particularly you parents, but not exclusively. So as we're starting to come towards the end of the year and the nights are drawing in, and I am going to say those words now, we should be thinking about a list, a set of goals or a plan for 2024. And I'm not going to keep banging on about it, but I'm just going to drop that thought in there. Think about how you want next year to be. And it might help you to reflect on, how has 23 been already? What did you miss out on? What would you like to have had more time to do? What would you have liked to have had more money to do? Where would you like to go? How would you like to feel? What would you like to be in 2024? And how have you felt? How have you been? Where have you been in 2023 as a reflection of that? So just think on that for a minute. This is early stages. I'm not asking you to write goals or anything like that. I'm just asking you to to think about a couple of questions. Are you trying being a very important part of this sentence? Are you trying too hard? And the reason I say trying, and I've mentioned it a couple of times, is the thing about trying is that doesn't mean to say that you are working harder. It doesn't mean to say that you're being any more successful, but sometimes that process of trying harder actually doesn't produce any results other than increased stress for you. No physical results in the sense of more money, more customers, or any of that, but just this pressure. And the pressure, when you actually start to analyze it, has come from outside. It is then mixed in with your emotions, and then you slather it all over yourself and make more pressure and more stress on yourself. When in actual fact, if you stop and ask yourself the question, are you loving life at the moment? Do you feel energized? Do you feel like you're living your best life? And if you do, that's absolutely great. Now, write your list and try and break that down into what is it about your life that energizes you? Why do you feel like you love your life and everything is going great? And see if we can put words there. And then how can you carry those words into 2024? Don't do as I do, and I've mentioned in another one of my podcasts that what I actually did was analyze my life one year, worked out what was going really well, and then worked out how I could absolutely spoil it by doubling the amount of work that I did in order to double the profit that I had. And by February, March, I was wasted. I was so exhausted. And my financial director role person turned around and came back to me and went, "What are you doing, Vicki? You're not meeting the targets. You're not happy. You've not increased your income. You're just exhausted. What's gone wrong?" And when I look back at it, it's because I was trying too hard. Everything in the previous year had been great. I'd had plenty of holidays. I'd had time with my family. I'd had plenty of income. I had plenty of customers. And instead of recognizing that what I had was exactly what I had planned for and why my life was great and why I felt energized and why everything was going really well and I loved it, instead of recognizing that, I decided to put pressure on myself. And in this case, there was no one else doing this. This was all me. I take full responsibility for it. So work out why 2023 has been great for you. And if there are bits about 2023 that you would like to change, things that you feel you've missed out on, things that you would like more, things that you would like less of, start to think about those things, articulate those. And if possible, think about how you could do less of the things that you don't like. Do more of the things that you've missed out on. Be more of the person that you want to be. Be more happy. Be more relaxed. Be more energized. Be more healthy. Be more wealthy. And then write this down. Create a list of 23 without filters. And then start to write a wish list for 24 without filters. Don't ask yourself how it would work. Don't ask how I could fit it in. It's just a list. You can always prioritize it later. It's just about starting that thought process. Are you trying too hard? Are you doing too much? Are you making yourself miserable when actually the only one putting the pressure on you is potentially you? Or maybe there is some outside pressure coming, but you can always turn around to that outside influence and go, "Thank you for the opportunity, but now it's not right for me." And that's perfectly fine. What do you want? What do you need? Do you want to spend a bit longer in each destination? So spend a bit longer with the animals on the game drive. Spend a bit longer in the mountains or the forests or the lakes. Spend a bit longer in the vineyards. You don't have to cram it all in. And then when you get to the other end, go, "Oh, goodness, I've got all of this time, but I'm too exhausted to enjoy it because I've used all my energy up." So it's about that energy balance, that recognition, that making things conscious. That's what's so important. Don't spend, a bit bossy there, sorry. Maybe think about not spending all your time being what everybody else wants of you. Make these lists so that 24 can be about being the person you want to be, living the life you want to live, enjoying yourself the way that you want to enjoy yourself. That is the ultimate wealthy life. And that's all I wish for you, really. That's absolutely all I wish for you. And what I'd just like to do at the end of this podcast is remind you that obviously I hope that I inspire you, that I give you things to think about. Even if you don't agree with me, in the not agreeing, hopefully you come to insights that give you more clarity. I use a lot of metaphors. I've been a lot of places. I'm very fortunate. I've met a lot of people and I draw those stories in. And over the last couple of weeks, I've been having conversations with Julia, who is the doctor of the paediatric palliative care charity Umdadozi in Durban. And I'd like to leave the end of this podcast with a message from her, and you may have heard it before. And I will play this a few times because there's a point in our lives where I feel that we need to recalibrate. And I spoke about that in terms of the trip to South Africa. It was very much about recalibrating for me. I absolutely feel different this side of that holiday. I feel like all the stress has gone, all the worry has gone. I feel like I'm back centered, privileged, proud, happy, know that I'm doing well, more confident, more stress-free, healthier, everything, because I took that moment to take a pause. And I used to do this in the past. I would put a week's holiday in my diary just to not feel like I was bound to anybody, that I put those in. I've spoken to you about the happy calendar to make sure that we prioritize our own happiness on the calendar first and then fit work in around the outside, not fill the calendar with work and then squeeze in happiness where you can get it. And the thing about Julia and the charity Umdadozi is recognizing how fortunate we are, how much we have, electricity whenever we want it, water whenever we want it, potentially too much water sometimes with all the storms that we've had this winter. Looking at the fact that you have a home that you are comfortable in, that you are warm in, that you are dry in, not that you are living in a property made out of pallets and tin and plastic bags and cardboard, regardless of the weather, the freezing cold in the winter, the wet of the winter season, that you are comfortable, that you have an indoor bathroom in your house, that you have a toilet, that you have somewhere hygienic to prepare your food, that when your children are sick, you can take them to the doctors and the doctor treats you seriously and the doctor puts you down the line and you get the treatment and you get the attention that you need for your children. It's not that you have to walk for 17 hours to get to the doctors for your appointments. It's not that by the time the doctor sees your child, that it's too late to treat them. And I just want to ask you at the end of this, if you're trying too hard, think about what's important. And maybe one of the things that you'll come to recognize is how fortunate you are. And from that place, hopefully of gratitude, you can find it in your heart to listen to Julia's plea. Thank you very much for listening. I'm going to hand you over to Julia. My name's Vicki Wusche. This is A Wealthy Life. And I would love it if you could follow the links in the show notes that come with this podcast. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you next week.
I am Dr. Julia Ambler, co-founder of Umdadozi Hospice Care for Children. And I'm here today to ask you for help. Our job is incredibly important. We have a very small team of dedicated professionals providing another layer of support to children that have got serious illness and to their families and siblings. Palliative care for children is a very poorly understood field. A lot of people think it's only about death and dying. They don't realize how stressful an illness is for a family and a child that are experiencing it. So at Umduduzi, we receive referrals from the whole province of KZN. We see children from 0 to 18 with conditions such as cancer, liver problems, kidney failure, heart problems. These families are diagnosed, are given very serious diagnosis. They've got to cope with that emotionally. They've got to process it. They've got to understand the treatments, the implications of those treatments, the prognosis. There's also much time that a child spends away from school, spends away from home, being admitted into a strange and unfamiliar place. And then, of course, there's the spiritual side of illness. Very few of us can separate our mind, body, and spirit when it comes to something as serious as sickness, such as cancer. So our role at Umduduzi is to really focus on that, find out what are the issues that this particular family and child are facing over and above the simple diagnosis that they have received. How do we provide that extra support that they need? It may be as simple as providing them a pram, an umbrella stroller. Perhaps the child has got a neurological disability and transporting the child is so very, very difficult. That pram costs 1,000 Rand and is completely out of reach for them. But maybe we can relieve some of their suffering by providing them with this mode of transport that can easily be put into the taxi as they make their way to hospital for their numerous appointments. That help that we might give might be more about pain management. Very few doctors focus on what a child is experiencing. They manage the disease, they treat the pneumonia, they treat the cancer, but have they asked about what the pain is, where is the pain, and how can we alleviate that pain physically, emotionally, and spiritually? So palliative care is really essential in any kind of healthcare setting. Unfortunately, in South Africa, it is purely in the NGO sector. There are very few people that are paid to do palliative care. And at the moment in South Africa, I am the only doctor receiving any funding from the Department of Health for palliative care. And I receive 10 hours a week to provide these services to the children of KZN. So we're in a difficult situation. We've got a nurse, 4 part-time nurses, a social worker, another very, very part-time doctor, a translator, and now recently we've employed a manager to help us with some of the fundraising because it is just such an arduous task. So despite being a small team, all of these people are professional and need to be paid. And the families that we support really do need that extra layer of support that we are offering. So I'm asking you today, it doesn't matter how little or how much, if you've got something to be able to give, whether it is in the form of a donation, such as a pram, or giving of your hard-earned money to pay for an hour of a nurse's time, we need you. And we really would be very grateful if you would consider following us on our social media pages, joining up to, we've got 100 Club where if everyone just gave 100 Rand a month, we would be able to cover all our costs quite simply. So please think about supporting us as we support the children with serious illness based in KZN.